Welcome to another edition of the Hawk Off the Press podcast. I'm your host, Gazette Hawkeyes reporter, Sean Steppe. I'm excited to welcome back to the podcast, friend of the podcast, Tom Kakert of Hawkeye Report and On3. Tom, thanks for joining me.
It's great to be here. Got plenty to talk about after the last 24 hours or so.
Yeah, I was going to joke, are we going to find enough to talk about? But let's start with Cooper. That's the biggest
all conversations.
thing.
Yeah. All conversations on Iowa football start with Cooper DeJean today. Boy.
Yeah. So we officially found out last night that Cooper DeJean suffered a season-ending injury in practice, a lower leg injury. Kirk Ferentz said more than 6-8 weeks on recovery. So looks like we have seen probably the last of Cooper DeJean, considering that he can make a lot of money here in April, potentially.
There's no reason for him to come back and play another game. I know he would probably love to come back and maybe play in a New Year's Day bowl game, but there's really no reason to do that. There's no reason to risk his health and his future in the NFL. It stinks that he's not able to play one last game at Kinnick Stadium, maybe make another magical memory for Iowa fans like he almost did against Minnesota. Well, he did, but then he didn't against Minnesota. But, it would be cool if somehow maybe they can figure out a way to give him one last coup, that the fans have enjoyed doing and really gotten into and given him one last kind of send off. Maybe they'll do that somehow. Maybe they'll pick a time, at the end of or before the game starts or something, have him come out and wave his hand in the air and everybody can give him a coup. And but the biggest thing for Iowa football is he's an All-American cornerback.
Yeah, there's no good time to lose.
No.
Mid-season All-American, finalists for the Nagurski Trophy. We could talk the whole time just going through his accolades. It isn't like, oh, this is a good time to lose.
There's no good time.
Player.
Yeah. He is, he is so integral to what they do defensively because he essentially one half of the field is gone, and he's excelled so much this year, and also, by the way, best punt returner probably in the country, one of the best gunners in the country, downing balls inside the 5-yard line, on Tory Taylor punts. And he was an offensive player a little bit,
2 plays.
2 plays. Hey, he got 2 plays. And, the irony of the rumor that he got injured playing offense yesterday is just not lost on anyone. I mean, it's just, of course that would happen, of course.
Well, it puts a pretty big hole here. Deshaun Lee is the guy who sounds like he's going to be the one stepping up. I guess that's maybe one blessing of Jamari Harris's sports wagering suspension at the beginning of the season.
Sure.
Deshaun Lee kind of got out there while the bullets were flying, I believe Kirk has used that analogy a few times, if I'm remembering right. But he's gotten a few opportunities there, and okay, at least you have that experience to go back on. But it's not going to be an easy challenge, or it's not going to be an easy task. It will be a challenge when that first game is against Isaiah Williams, probably as good of a wide receiver maybe as Iowa has seen this season.
Yeah, he's probably the best wide receiver they've seen this season. They haven't seen Marvin Harrison, so that'd probably be, or one of the other guys from Ohio State, probably be 1A. I maybe the guy from Penn State was pretty good too, Lambert. He was really good, but yeah, they haven't faced anybody the caliber of Williams, who's got 68 catches, I think, this year. So, and the Bryant kid's not bad too from Illinois. I think he's got 30 some catches. So they've got some talent at wide receiver. And the good news is Deshaun, I thought game 1, he was okay. Game 2, I thought he played pretty well against Iowa State. I thought he had a really good game. He seemed to be a willing tackler. He's not afraid to put his nose in there and try and get some stuff done. So I think he'll be okay. But it makes that thinness at corner even more pronounced, because at least you had Sean Lee. Now after that, if they go dime, they're probably going to like Cohen Intringer and bringing him in as a safety if they go dime coverage. I think that's just me. So I think it's just Devin Hilson, John Nestor, Brendan Dees Fernandez are probably the next three guys on that list, and none of them have played any real snaps in a game.
And that's where you go into kind of the problem that Iowa had last year when DeJean goes down. And fortunately, It was only just that one game missed that time. But when you don't have that depth, it can get exposed pretty quickly. And you're going to be going up against some pass-heavy teams. This is not the Illinois of Chase Brown that Iowa saw last year.
Yeah, this is a good, this is an Illinois team that's going to throw the ball a little bit more than they ran the ball last year. They were primarily heavy run last year with Chase Brown, but this year, Luke Altmaier, and then, John Paddock, who's not going to start for them, apparently.
Allegedly.
If you believe Brett Bielema, he's not going to start. And, he's Paddock threw for 507 yards last week against Indiana. Now, Indiana not as good, but I kind of wonder if there's going to, the over-under this week is 30, but I kind of wonder if we're going to blow past this, because Illinois' defense is not as good as it was last year. They lost three guys in the defensive backfield to the NFL, including a top level pick in Witherspoon. So you wonder, they're taking a step back. So you wonder if Iowa's offense is going to have a good day, but also Illinois' offense might have a better day. Although I don't know how Phil Parker does it. I mean, 3 of the last 4 games, they've yielded 1 touchdown in the last 4 games, and they've held teams to single digits in 3 of the last 4 games too. I mean, it's incredible what they've done in the last month. I don't care who you're playing. It's incredible what they're doing.
Oh yeah. And to your point about Paddock, I obviously don't have the record book right in front of me, but I have, and I don't think this is tracked in the record book either, but there can't be many times when you have somebody win Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week and then get benched the following week.
Yeah.
And when we talked to Jay Neiman yesterday on Zoom, it sounds like they are very much preparing for the possibility of also seeing Paddock, unless Altmaier just comes out there and looks, as Neiman called it, red hot, which obviously Neiman and all of the Hawkeyes hope is not the case. So this could be an interesting Illinois team, but to your point also with Iowa's defense, it is unbelievable. And kind of after last year when they gave up only, I think it's 3.99 yards per play, you were thinking, okay, there's no way they're going to be this good again. And now they're at, 4.0 yards allowed per play?
Yep. They did it again. Right at the same spot. And that's losing Jack Campbell and Riley Moss to the NFL and Lucas Van Ness and Kayvon Merriweather and Lucas Van Ness. And, they lost some talent from last year's team, and it has just been plug and play. I mean, Jay Higgins, I think he's right there. He leads the Big Ten in tackles. It might be right in the mix for the country.
I think maybe second off the top of my head.
Yeah, he might be second, but still playing at an All-American level. I mean, and who would have predicted that following up Jack Campbell that Jay would do that, and also probably future Golden Gavel winner Jay Higgins too, which is more important for us, right? Right, John?
Yes, most important
interview on the team. Best interview on the team is Jay Higgins. He's there every week, and he answers every question, and he does so with great depth and care and respect. And that's what I love about that kid is he's just, he'll tell it like it is. And so, yeah, it's pretty amazing because, the sacks are down, the turnovers are down.
Way down.
Way down. I mean, the interceptions, where they have 8 this year, I think, in total, and sacks are, other than one game where they had 6, they just haven't had a big sack game. But here we are, and they're still doing what they're doing and doing it at a very high level.
And it seems like this run defense, the last kind of 2 months, month and a half or so, it feels like kind of when the calendar shifted from September to October, we've just seen that unit reach another level. And it's not like they haven't gone up against any good running backs. You see Kyle Monangai,
leading the Big Ten.
Yeah. You look week before Northwestern, that's a team that likes to run the ball. You can just
Braylon
go down
Allen.
the list. Yeah, Braylon Allen.
Yeah.
Less than 100 yards. And some of that, too, is probably Wisconsin's play calling. I don't think the Badgers did as much as they could to put Allen in positions to make plays. But still, that's really good numbers there for a team that you thought, okay. And also, you were mentioning all the players they don't have. Noah Shannon, too.
Yeah, Noah Shannon.
Yeah.
Can we forget him?
2-year starter.
Yeah. Haven't had him for a snap this year.
And that's probably a good segue to talking about Shannon.
Yeah.
As we record this on Thursday, had just gotten the announcement that Shannon will be the honorary captain for senior day. This should be, I think, a really cool moment at Kinnick.
Oh, just awesome. Like I said, the Coop thing. So they need to figure out a way to get a giant Coop chant going of some sort from Iowa fans before the game. But Noah Shannon was going to be, the two guys that I thought coming into senior day that were probably going to get the biggest ovation. One of them's Tory Taylor. Iowa loves their punters. Iowans love two things: Casey's Pizza and punters. So, love Tory Taylor. So, he's going to get a huge ovation. I mean, what other school in the country cheers when their punter comes out to the field to punt?
None of them.
None of them. There's no other place where that happens. And it's just how kind of, weird and strange and embracing the weird Iowa fans are. And it's great. But I think Noah's going to get the second biggest ovation because everybody feels like he got screwed. And he got screwed bad by the NCAA because they got his hopes up, let him practice, and got his hopes all up that he would be able to play this year, and then just pulled the rug out from under him in the start of the final month of the season. And it is ridiculous what happened. It's a shame what happened to a good kid who'd made one silly mistake, one friggin' bet on a women's basketball game at the University of Iowa. And you punish him by not letting him play. And he came back. The other thing was he came back for his 6th year.
Yeah, he didn't have to do that.
He didn't have to do that. He could have taken off this year. And it screwed him out of a year of his life playing football. Because he could have moved on, maybe, made an NFL team, maybe made a practice squad, something, and chase that dream. And now makes it just even harder. So it stinks. It really does. But he's going to get a massive ovation. And here's the other thing, John. We know he would have been a team captain this year.
Oh, yeah.
100%. I mean, when he got invited to represent the team in Indianapolis and then had to decline because of this, that's assuring you that he would have been a team. He would have been one of the 4 players representing the University of Iowa every game for the coin toss. Mm-hmm. This is the way to get around that now. He's just the honorary captain, and he's going to be able to be out there with his brothers, and that's going to be super awesome. I mean, out there with the kids captain too, and kids captain named Cooper, by the way, this week. So fitting.
Yes. So there'll be a couple of Coopers to cheer for at Kinnick. And with Noah Shannon, you understand why the NCAA has some gambling rules. You see why it affects the integrity of the game when you have athletes betting on, because they're spending more time. Like, let's say, this is me humorous, anybody who saw the Newbrow and Eisenhower 2013 freshman baseball team, but let's say I'm a star third baseman at Iowa. I'm going to be privy to more information about basketball or football or whichever sport. But that being said, when we're talking about the scope of what Noah Shannon, like Kirk, Noah, you name it, they all recognize that Noah did something he wasn't supposed to do. Mm-hmm. But when you miss the entire season as a 6th-year senior, it prompts the question, is this really commiserate with what he did?
Yeah.
And you're really hard pressed to say yes when one bet on a basketball game ends your college career, derails your NFL path. Knowing Noah, he's a hard enough worker that I'm sure he's doing things to still be in a good position, but all of your tape is gonna be a year old at this point.
It's like killing an ant with a shovel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's excessive, and it doesn't need to be that way. And I thought initially that the NCAA was going to change these rules, and the initial ones that came out seemed pretty reasonable. They seemed pretty logical. They seemed to make some sense for the world that we're living in now. And instead, now I think they're probably sitting there patting themselves on the back thinking, oh, wow, we really made a radical change. You know, they're not banned now. They've only got to sit the whole season and lose a year of eligibility. How is that really helping a kid? What are you doing? You know, it's ridiculous to me. It's excessive. It doesn't need to be that way. But it's the NCAA, and that's what they do. And, you know, Tom Brands went off about the stuff too yesterday, but he's calling on us to investigate. And I don't know that we're going to get to the bottom of it. I wish we could. I've had a lot of people blame a lot of different people, elected officials, for doing this. And I'm not really sure that. I think it was just a couple of people just kind of with too much time on their hands trying to make a name for themselves. That's my sense on things, and it's too bad.
Yeah, and you have so many factors that go into it because you have the state investigation, which then prompts the NCAA. So it's one of those things where it's easy to look back and say, okay, if this one thing would have gone differently, if that one thing would have gone differently, what could have maybe been different about this whole thing? But kind of moving forward, 2 weeks to go in the regular season, Iowa, we've used the driver's seat analogy before. And then they've kind of fallen out of the driver's seat.
And they got thrown out the car. Car door. Yeah.
Now they have a stronger seatbelt in place, I guess. Not a perfect one. You know, I wouldn't recommend booking anything non-refundable until it is for sure clinched. I have something booked with very flexible cancellation policy, but this seems to be a pretty good position in terms of Indianapolis just needing to win one of these next two games.
Well, just, you know, if you ever need a cautionary tale, look back to 1 year ago when they were in the driver's seat and Nebraska came into Iowa City and walked out with a win, and Iowa did not go to Indianapolis. The Purdue Boilermakers went there. So this time they've got a little more cushion. They had 2-game lead, which is remarkable considering they have 2 losses in conference play, that they have a 2-game lead in a division in Power 5 football. But that just tells you how, you know, bad, for lack of a better term, the Big Ten West is. You know, 2 weeks left of the Big Ten West, John, and then it goes away forever.
It's a very unceremonious end.
The dustbin of history, along with the legends and leaders, is the Big Ten West. And we'll pour one out for them in Indy at some point, probably, but hopefully we're there. But Iowa, they're in control. They win Saturday, they're going to Indy. The Nebraska game cannot impact the outcome of that. Or if they lose this week and then go to Nebraska and win, they're going to Indy. So it's all there for them. But for the life of me, and I think you'll agree with me, sometimes I don't know how they do this. It is it's like a magician. It's like watching David Copperfield or something. It's sleight of hand. It's just, how do they magically keep pulling out these wins? I don't know how, but they do. Who would have thought that Deacon Hill, when there's $1.50 left at Wrigley Field, no one in Iowa gear, I'm saying this with 100% certainty, $1.50 left in a tie game, no one thought Deacon Hill was going to lead them on that drive. No one. I mean, defies logic. And then he hits Caleb Brown, and all of a sudden they're in position. And then Drew Stevens nails the field goal. I mean, it's just, they're just figuring out, finding ways to win. They get opposing teams to play into Iowa's hand and play the way Iowa wants to play. And for most other teams, that's like playing left-handed. And they can't play this way. But Iowa gets them to play their game, and that's how they beat them.
And it seems like all these games are really thin margin for error games.
Yep.
Where one play, like that Deacon Hill drive, okay, if that ends in an interception, Iowa loses that game.
Yep.
You can go down with so many of these games, not really the Rutgers game, but pretty much any of the other Big Ten wins, and say, okay, if this one thing goes different, this could be a much different game.
Yep.
And I think some of the credit, too, in terms of winning so many of those margin for error games is you just have a really experienced coach that has been through this, a former Big Ten Coach of the Year, probably going to be a strong candidate for that award this year. Some competition from Northwestern, but Kirk will certainly be in the conversation for that.
Yeah, he should be. He should be. And I think you're right. Iowa just has this comfort. They know how to play in these type of games. They know they're comfortable being uncomfortable in a game, and they just kind of know who they are. And these other teams. So, I mean, you think of it this way. If not for the officials making a terrible decision, I'll just say it was a terrible decision. And the justification of it made it seem even more ridiculous. If they had not intervened in the Minnesota game, Iowa's already clinched.
Yeah.
And that they're another improbable win. Who would have thought, Cooper fields a ball and zips down the sidelines and goes by 7 Minnesota players and ends up in the end zone? And it's just, it defies logic. It just doesn't make any sense. But here we are, and they just keep doing this and keep doing it. And that's why I'm done kind of thinking that this team is going to, they can't keep winning. They lose Caden McNamara. They lose Eric All. They lose Luke Lachey. Now they lose Cooper DeJean. They can't win. They can't win. They can't win. And then all they do is go out and win.
Yeah, it's a logic-defying. It's a fascinating team to cover.
Yes.
Like, you want interesting when you're covering a team. And this team is all sorts of interesting in so many ways. And you just never know what you're going to get, it seems like, on a given Saturday in terms of, okay, how do they pull this rabbit out of the hat? And at some point it could catch up to them, or it might not. We'll see.
Yeah. Now, when they stepped up in weight class against Penn State, they got their butts handed to them. I mean, they did. They got smoked pretty heavily but it was close at halftime. But then Penn State just kind of wore them out, and they were just better. And I would think that's probably, if they make it to Indianapolis, that's probably what's going to happen against Ohio State and Michigan. Iowa might kind of play around with them a little bit, and it might be, we'll be sitting there and it'll be 10-3 at half, but then all of a sudden they find the nitro in the Michigan or Ohio State gearbox, and all of a sudden they're on turbo and it's 31-zip or something. And that's my guess is what would happen, but you never know. You got to play the game. And, the still poker analogy that as long as I've got a chip in a chair, I got a chance. And that's what Iowa has to look at going into these last 2 games and potentially 3 games of the season.
Yeah, I probably can't use the I don't bet on it, or I wouldn't bet on it analogy, considering all the gambling stuff that's happened this year.
Yeah.
But you probably wouldn't bet on an Indianapolis win, but if you think about just getting there says something in terms of that has only happened twice before since the Big Ten championship game was.
It might not happen when the divisions go away next year. It might not happen for a while. You don't know. So it's going to be harder for sure.
Yeah.
Because you're going up against Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, USC, Washington, Oregon, in addition. So it's going to be, the hill will be higher and longer to climb to get there.
I think you just mentioned 7 teams that all are going to have really legitimate shots at those 2 spots in Indianapolis. And you just look at that math. 8th best in the Big Ten. Like, that used to seem like, oh, but the 8th best team in the Big Ten in future years is me a pretty darn good team.
Yeah. Yeah. Could be, an 8-4 team that's pretty decent. It just could. I mean, that's just how it's going to be moving forward. I'm just, we'll see what this happens, but I'm also like really fascinated to look forward and see what next year is going to look like with all these different things. And Iowa, I was looking at the 2024 schedule the other day, just even the travel. I mean, you're going to Ohio State, you're going to UCLA, you're going to Maryland. You go to UCLA and Maryland in between, a bye week in between. So, and you're going coast to coast literally in 3 weeks.
I personally do not mind the UCLA trip in November. Let me just be on the record about that part.
Yeah,
and even same. Maryland. Okay, I'll take a little bit farther south. Got a nice nonstop out of Cedar Rapids to Reagan too, so you can get there easily and all that. So I don't mind that part. But yeah, it's gonna be a new world, really, starting next year, where you're not really gonna recognize 2023 and before Big Ten. Now watch me say that, and you're still gonna have some Big Ten West-esque games, undoubtedly.
Oh, you're going to.
Yes.
You're going to. It's gonna keep happening, but it's an interesting time for the conference from a football perspective, because there are so many different styles of football that are going to be merging together. And you're seeing how Wisconsin's trying to transition this year, and it hasn't gone well. And boy, that performance last week was just, that was a stinker up in Madtown. I mean, they just didn't play well. So, that's not going well. Purdue, signs of life. You wonder if Minnesota, after they beat Iowa, had things all in control, and PJ Fleck was already booking dinner at St. Elmo's, and Illinois beats them in the last minute, and then they just get destroyed. So hey, by the way, PJ, you're going to Columbus this weekend. Good luck with that. Interesting race, interesting conference.
Well, also coming up in December, the early signing period.
Yeah.
So I don't have this number off the top of my head, but I think On3 has Iowa ranked somewhere in the 30s, I think, for its 2024 recruiting class.
Yeah, it's a solid class. And again, so the big markers right now, we have them at 33 in the 2024 class. So kind of about where you thought they would be. I think it's 7th in the Big Ten. So again, about where you thought they would be from a class perspective. But the big dates that are coming up, first, Portal Day, December 4th, when the portal officially opens up for business. Now, there may be some guys that enter sooner, depending on when the season ends. Mm-hmm. If Iowa does not make it to Indianapolis, you might see some guys start to announce after the Nebraska game. We'll see, but I don't expect to see a lot of guys declaring for the portal. There might be some. Iowa is technically, with the guys that they are expected to sign and the current roster, they're 6 over the 85. So there's going to be some guys that they're going to be negotiating with, or I shouldn't say negotiating, that's kind of a bad word, but talking to. But the Swarm Collective will probably be speaking with them as well. Sebastian Castro, Jay Higgins, guys like that. Who am I leaving out? Quinn Schulte.
Yeah.
Guys like that and a Luke Lachey, who we haven't talked to in a while, but he's got NFL interest, but could come back. We know Cade's coming back, but there's some selected guys that I think they're going to try and keep for another year. So December, but you're also going to have to be very active in the portal too. I think they'd want to get a defensive back. Do they want to upgrade the backup quarterback position? given Cade's health issues and past, with the ACL, coming back from the ACL now, or are you comfortable with Deacon? I think maybe that depends on how Deacon finishes the season and how you feel about Marco Lainez. I think it's pretty clear Labus has kind of slid back to third at this point. Are any of those running backs going to take leave? Guys want to run.
Yeah. And you've got a crowded backfield there too.
You got crowds there. So is there going to be some thinning out there? It's going to be interesting to see how the portal stuff goes. But then December 20th, we've got signing day, and it's, I think they're pretty locked in on 20. And I think the preference would be maybe go out and get some guys in the portal to fill the rest, any needs that they feel like they have. Like, I think they'd probably love to go out and get an experienced corner.
Yeah. I think that's probably the number one.
They might want to get 2 experienced corners, to be honest. But, we'll see, because I don't anticipate that Jamari's coming back. He could come back. I just don't anticipate him coming back. Cooper obviously is going to the NFL. So they've got to find some guys there, unless they feel really comfortable with Deshaun Lee and TJ Hall and Devin Hilson. But I don't, John Nestor. I don't know that they're ready to commit to those guys to be starters. They may want to at least get one experienced corner, is my guess.
Especially as injuries happen. You think about like how, I think it's 2021 was when it seemed like, all of this cornerback depth. You've got Riley Moss on one side. You've got Matt Hankins on the other. You've got Terry Roberts as your third best quarterback. He'd be starting on a lot of teams. And then you look and, Hankins suffers injury, Moss suffers injury, Terry Roberts suffers injury. Injuries happen. So even if you do feel really good about Deshaun Lee and TJ Hall, and at least Lee is getting some time in, kind of going back to our earlier point about Cooper, but you're putting a lot of faith in guys, and then it can get even thinner after that. So,
one other position they're going to have to fill is punter. And I would expect they're going to look to the Pro Kick Australia route again. Somebody like, the next version of Tory Taylor coming to Iowa City. And I think they've got a pretty good relationship there with Pro Kick. For those who don't know, Pro Kick Australia is kind of the company that trains these Australian punters who play, most of them play Australian rules football. And they, you look around college football and professional football, and there's Australians punting all over the place. So,
and largely because of them.
Yes, it's all the Pro Kick guys. So, but they kind of control that process and kind of assign guys to different places based on, and sometimes it's better when you've given a good experience to a guy. They're going to maybe give you a better punter or something. They're going to maybe give you the prime cut instead of, maybe it might be more Wagyu than just off the rack kind of stuff. So, I'm really interested to see who they, I know they've got somebody, they just haven't revealed who it is yet. So we'll wait and see who it is.
Yeah. And you look at it, they certainly have a strong case to make. Well, they probably have already made that case a while ago.
Oh yeah.
But
it's already done.
Yeah. But they had, I should use past tense, they had a very good case to make in terms of, you look at Tory Taylor's success. You've got LeVar Woods, one of the best special teams minds in the country, no doubt. So you have a lot of those factors that, this is a spot where whoever you put there is going to be in a position most likely to succeed.
Yeah.
And, the Iowa offense joke kind of writes itself right here too. So there's that as well. But you really, they're going to be in a good position to get somebody, good. So that's probably not the biggest positional need there in terms of the portal. But you mentioned backup quarterback. That's been a position where you've seen attrition. You've seen attrition at wide receiver. I think probably wouldn't hurt to get a wide receiver maybe in the portal, but
yeah, I agree.
It doesn't help when you have the challenge of you're recruiting a wide receiver to tight end you. And the drawback of being a great tight end school is, okay, wide receivers, it can be sometimes a little more of a tough lift. So it'll be interesting to see December 5th. And even before that, as you mentioned, with people announcing their intentions to enter the portal, surely there will be no reaching out by any coaches before that first day.
Yeah, there's no back channel contacts going on anywhere in the country. It's all just a surprise when you see names come in. I mean, come on, everybody knows that's the dirty little secret that a lot of these things are quote unquote done before they even hit the portal. And magically, a guy's got a list of 5 schools within 10 minutes. Wow, why is that? I don't know.
Those coaches are just really fast on Twitter.
It is important. I did talk to Tyler Barnes about this before, and he said it is really important to be one of the first people to reach out to a kid. So I think that day you're really wanting to have those names and get in front of them within the first 12 to 24 hours, because those are the people that are going to get the most attention from the prospect. So that's something to watch is for Iowa fans. If you want to know where they're looking in the portal, just watch on social media to see guys putting up stuff about just received an offer from Iowa. You can't mess around either. You got to just react quickly and give them an offer. You can't just say, well, I'm just calling to say hi. You got to hit the ground running with an offer on the table, because these guys, I termed it the other day. I termed the portal process and finding schools like speed dating. It's just like you're going somewhere and you're going to spend like 5 minutes with your date, and then you're going to decide who you want to marry, kind of thing.
Like speed dating on steroids there, because you think about the process. Some of these recruits you're building relationships with over multiple years.
Yeah. And most of these guys want to get to their destination for January. So you're like December 4th, and so by the middle of January, you want to be somewhere. So you've got like literally like, and some of these schools are traveling to bowl games and different things. So the visits are limited. So you want to get them on campus the next 2 weekends before you go to a bowl destination.
And the other thing too is these athletes, they recognize that this is basically a game of musical chairs.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the talent coming in and the spots available,
where
these athletes have some urgency, because, okay, are they going to wait around another week and risk those offers where they did have a spot? Offers have an expiration date. That applies for more than just the portal, but especially for the portal, those have a quick expiration date. So, it's like, some kind of food that doesn't have any preservatives in it. Like, okay, you gotta take advantage while you have it.
You gotta eat it while it's hot, because otherwise it's just gonna go away. You gotta throw it in the trash bin. So you gotta. It's honestly, and I've asked Tyler about this too. The month of December is it's completely unfair to coaches, because you're, say Iowa is preparing for a Big Ten title game, a bowl game, got signing day, so you got all those plates in the air, and you're going to have portal in, portal out, so you're going to have guys going and coming and going as you prepare for a bowl game. It just seems an untenable situation for a coach. Now, they're highly compensated. I'm not saying that, boy, these guys got to work so hard. I mean, they're making, a coordinator making $1 million a year, or a head coach making $6 million a year, or whatever. I get it. They're well compensated. It just doesn't seem like a very good way to do business, and maybe they need to adjust it.
A lot of caffeine intake probably on Evashevsky Drive in the month of December.
And everywhere, every college coach has to deal with this. It's just, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, Tom, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely, John. It was good to talk with you and all the people who are reading the Gazette. guys do a great job at the Gazette, you and Mike and the entire team there. So we'll see you Saturday in the press box.
Yes, thank you. See you Saturday. And thanks to our listeners for tuning into another episode. Until Saturday, we will talk Hawks later.